A 12-year-old girl, Maya Coleman, claims to have witnessed something no one is prepared to hear. A precise date, a sudden collapse, and a betrayal from the highest echelons of power in the United States. In her view, September 4th, 2025, will mark a before and after for America. This isn't a war or an accident. It's a decision, a point of no return. And in her experience, Donald Trump appears, but not as we know him. He's changed, unrecognizable. If what Maya tells us is true, then the time we have left is very short. Subscribe, leave a like if this story disturbs you, and comment, what do you think will happen on September 4th? My name is Maya Coleman. I'm 12 years old, and I live in Katy, Texas. It's a quiet town. Too quiet. Maybe you can hear the wind passing through the bushes. Everything seems stuck in a loop. For a while now, I've felt out of step, as if I were looking at the world through a gently trembling glass. I became obsessed with reflections, mirrors, puddles of water, even car windows. It wasn't a whim, it was something visceral, because in those reflections, things weren't in their place. My reflection didn't move at the same time as me. Sometimes it turned its head before I did. Other times, it stared at me while I lowered my eyes. I once told my mother about this. She laughed. She told me I had too much imagination. But it wasn't just that. There was a constant ticking in my room, on the bus, even in the shower. The sound of a metallic mechanical clock. But there are no clocks on the wall in my house, not a single one. I searched the entire house. I never found where it was coming from, and yet the sound was still there, as if it were coming from inside me. Then my memories started to fail me. I forgot simple things, the way to school, a classmate's name, but sometimes it was worse. I would wake up knowing exactly what my dad was going to say, word for word, as if time were tied in a knot, as if I were living a dress rehearsal. One night I woke up standing in the hallway in front of the large mirror near the entrance. I didn't remember going there, but what I saw wasn't me. It was me, but older, with darker eyes, and it smiled at me sadly. The next day the nightmares began. A giant clock suspended against a black sky, the hands turning backward, and a voice whispering to me, "Time closes, Maya. Time closes." On September 4th, 2025, everything changed. I was at the doctor for a simple appointment. I'd had a headache for days. He prescribed a new medication, an antihistamine. I took it right there, and in less than 2 minutes, my throat began to close up. I felt a strange warmth rise in my chest. Then, an icy coldness invaded me. I looked at the mirror at the back of the waiting room and saw it slowly cracking like a spider web. But no one else noticed. They were talking, laughing as if I were no longer there, as if I were invisible. It was at that moment that I realized I was leaving, but that was only the beginning. I remember the ceiling, the white lights buzzing, the murmur of the waiting room, and that moment when I heard a creak under my feet. Even though I was sitting down, no one else reacted. But I saw the floor crack. Not physically, no, but as if an image inside me had shattered. Then everything happened very quickly. A sensation in my throat, the lack of air, the buzzing that turned into a roar, and then everything collapsed. Not in the sense that everything went black. No, everything disintegrated like an old video game crashing. The walls, the faces, the sounds transformed into colored blocks floating in the air before falling like rain to the floor. And I slipped. Beneath the chair where I was, a cracked, pulsating, almost living mirror appeared. I fell into it without resistance. My body didn't hit anything. It was like being sucked into a dream, but with a lucidity stronger than ever. I landed in a suspended station, floating in a starless sky. There was no gravity, but my feet touched the ground. The silence was total, but dense, as if the entire universe were holding its breath. A train was approaching, floating, without rails or engine. It was white, with no windows, no visible doors. But as I got close enough, an entrance opened. I got on. I didn't know where I was going, or even why I was walking. But I had to. It was an impulse stronger than thought. The train moved through a deep void where fragments of cities, trees, and memories floated, and then it stopped in front of me. A suspended city made of broken towers like skyscrapers, torn from the earth and held up by invisible cables. The towers murmured. Yes, they whispered to each other. Their voices were faint, but charged with emotion. They repeated numbers: 7, 1,000, 25, decree, quarter. I didn't understand the sentences, but I knew that each number had weight. I got off the train, walked among those collapsed structures, and every time I approached one, I felt a pressure in my chest, as if it were transmitting its memories to me. Images flashed through my mind: political speeches, protests, long lines outside hospitals, and then everything went white. Further on, I came to the edge of a frozen ocean. The surface was smooth, but beneath the ice there were human faces, dozens, maybe hundreds. They stood motionless with their eyes open. Some were crying, and on their foreheads I saw symbols, flags, chains, two-headed eagles, electronic chips. I bent down. One of the faces stared at me. Its eyes were mine. I stepped back, frozen. Then, an amphitheater of light appeared before me. Children sat in a circle, silent. None spoke. None looked at me, but all waited. In the center, a young man looked nothing like the classic images of Jesus. He had a serene, youthful appearance, perhaps 20 years old. He dressed simply, without a beard. His eyes were like suns, yet he didn't look directly at me. He looked right through me. He didn't say a word. But as soon as he raised his hand, a series of images projected before my eyes. They were enormous holograms floating in the void. My first glimpse was a cosmic chessboard, enormous. The squares were continents. The pieces were familiar faces, heads of state, political leaders, generals, journalists. One of the pieces was cracked and golden. It was Donald Trump. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. I was about to be betrayed, but not by an enemy, by someone from within, a faceless piece but with familiar gestures. That faceless figure moved abruptly and the entire board cracked. A deep crack, and then the explosion. Second vision, a gigantic black sphere slowly rose over the east coast of the United States. It absorbed the light, blocked the waves, created absolute silence. Cities went dark one by one. New York, Washington, Boston, and then a countdown appeared in the sky. 25,052,025. Only that date remained. No time, no name, no flag. Third vision. A cosmic library. The books were literally weeping. Tears fell down their spines. Some pages were slowly burning. Others were blank, empty. A deep voice said, "Without a mouth, without origin, they chose to forget." I turned to Jesus. This time he looked at me. His gaze was sad, not angry, and in my mind I heard one last phrase. "It's not a punishment, it's a consequence." And then I fell. The ground disappeared beneath my feet. I fell headfirst as if the world had spit me out. I returned to my body, shouting a phrase I didn't know. Later, they told me it was ancient Hebrew, but I only speak English. The phrase, Beharisha, that Chashan Elo, and the wicked will disappear like smoke. I don't know why I said it, but since then, I've felt like the whole world is walking a tightrope and that May 25th is approaching. Since I returned, nothing is the same. I'm not talking about nightmares or traumas. I'm talking about an invisible thread that now connects me to everything, as if reality had flipped and I was left standing. At first, I didn't understand. I thought it was mental, but soon the signs became clear. I see red auras around certain people, not all of them, just those who are hiding something. I don't know exactly what it means, but their energy is like an annoying buzz, and many times when they speak, I know they're lying. It's not intuition. It's like hearing a false note in a familiar melody. I've also started predicting small things, not spectacular visions, simple things. A power failure before it happens, an argument between neighbors that I describe word for word the day before, or phone calls. I say, who's going to call and why? And I'm always right. It's not a coincidence. It's as if time has bent, as if some pages of the future have already been read and only I can still see them. And meanwhile, the news changes tone. One day they talk about targeted cyber attacks. The next, unprecedented internal arrests in government agencies, and then the inexplicable. A secret project related to the White House has been leaked, but everything is censored. When I heard that, I felt a burning sensation behind my eyes, as if a signal was being sent to me. I don't know why, but I knew for sure. Something is starting. And then there are people. Strangers, well-dressed adults, ordinary people who stop me on the street, stare at me without hostility, but with fear and amazement. Some call me by name without my knowing them. They say, "You're the girl in the vision," or, "They told us a girl would speak." I don't know who warned them, but I know they're telling the truth. Everything around me changes. My mother has become extremely protective. She wants me to drop out of school, to stay home, to stop talking. But I can't, because even in silence, something inside me screams. The pastor of our church came to our house, looked at me as if I were a sacred object, and told me that I could be a sign, a divine voice for a lost generation. I replied calmly, "I'm here for you to follow. I'm here to warn. I'm not looking to convince anyone. I don't want followers or cameras. I just want you to listen because May 25th is approaching, and I feel that day will no longer be a vision. It will be Jiao. What Maya saw may not be a fixed future, but an intersection, a point where a choice is still possible. But for how much longer? What if May 25th, 2025 wasn't the end, but the decisive test, a date carved not in stone, but in our collective unconscious? What if betrayal didn't come from where we're looking for it? What if she weren't a man, but an idea, a distorted faith, or worse, a silent consent? Then perhaps Maya isn't a prophet. Perhaps she's our mirror, a warning, or a last chance. The question isn't, is she real? If not, are we ready to hear it? Leave your thoughts in the comments.